Welcome everyone for this weekly PR review club. I mean, bi-weekly PR review club. So in this session, we will be discussing the PR 31130, which is drop mini UPnP dependency. So before going into this PR, I'll just explain what UPnP means. Okay, so basically UPnP means universal plug and play. It's a service that allows devices on the same local network, basically that are connected to the same router, to discover each other automatically and connect through standard protocols like TCP, HTTP, and UDP. So basically, UPnP is basically the oldest and widely supported protocols uh, that allows to devices to connect automatically and configure port forwarding on routers. So suppose this is a router that supports UPnP, okay? And there are three devices, gaming console, smartphone, and computer. Okay, so if this gaming console requires internet access, so it will request the UPnP router with the port so that the router maps to this port. If somebody like is playing with someone, then they will request some port. So it will request that port and the router will open that port. Similarly for smartphone and computer. So let's see for how that works in Bitcoin Core. Okay. So when a Bitcoin Core starts running, then it requires the post 883 to be open because we want the inbound and outbound connections. So for that reason, it requires 8333 port and the router opens that port 8333. Then it maps the 8333 public IP with the local 8333. Okay. So after that, it will just like connect to other peers. Okay. So this is how the UPnP works. And the next is basically the PCP. PCP means port control protocol, which is a modern kind of successor to UPnP. Because in UPnP, you can connect if you are a computer connected to a router, then you can connect with the other devices that are connected to the same router. Okay. So PCP is kind of a modern successor to UPnP, and it was designed to keep the security in mind. And yeah, that's TCP and NAT-PMP, networking protocol mapping. NAT Port Mapping Protocol. Okay. So this is actually this is also kind of similar to PCP, and it was designed by Apple. Okay. And this is also similar to PCP, like it does the port forwarding and it keeps the security in mind. So in this PR, like Bitcoin Core uses the UPnP previously, and there was some vulnerabilities. Okay, like it uses the C library, that is mini UPnpc, and there was some vulnerability with the mini UPnpc. So what was the vulnerability? It was disclosed in 2015. Okay, so what happens was there was a buffer overflow. Okay, if you are connected in the same router which supports UPnP, then what you can do is support if you want to connect, if you are connected with the other devices, or even if you're not connected, then what happens is if it supports UPnP, then it keeps a record of all the devices that are connected to that router. Okay, so what happens is there is a buffer overflow, and if like I'll just show you this. Yeah, this is a function. Okay, IGD start telt function, and with this, what happens is like if you create if in your device, if you have a large XML file, then basically the oversized XML file, then you can remotely execute the code with that oversized XML. This was a bug in the Miniupnpc library. So with that, in 2015, it was disclosed. With that, the UPnP argument or the feature was disabled in Bitcoin Core. I mean, previously it was enabled by default, and with that, with this vulnerability disclosed, it was actually turned off by default. Okay. And in 2021, this was another vulnerability, okay, that was disclosed. And what happens was if you see here, the mini UPnpc, the UPnP library used by Bitcoin Core would be waiting upon discovery for as long as it receives random data from the device on the network. Okay, so I just said before, like when you are connected with the router, and it keeps all the data of the devices that are currently connected to that router. So it will allocate some memory. Okay. So if an attacker on the local network would pretend that this device is a UPnP enabled device, then it keeps on sending bloated and search replies, okay, to the Bitcoin core node until it run out of memory, which is a kind of DOS vector. So with this vulnerability disclosed, this PR was pushed so that we could get rid of this mini UPnpc library, uh, because this is external library and it is currently not maintained by many developers. Like I just saw it is currently maintained by 1 or 2 developers. So that's the vulnerability disclosed, and the active contributions made this library, we could get rid of this library. Okay, basically the main purpose of this functionality is to have more reachable nodes on the network. For a non-technical user running Bitcoin Core at home, the software would automatically open a port in their router to receive incoming connections, inbound connections. The way users not able to manually open a port in their router would still provide the network with more resources and hence its diversity. Okay. So yeah, I mean, because of the past vulnerabilities and unknown future ones, uh, this feature was actually disabled by default in PR in PR, yeah, 66795, and it was actually the PCP with NAT-PMP was enabled, not enabled. I mean, there was an option you can use this protocol. This is actually a newer protocol. I mean, if I just said that, and this was actually keeping the security in mind, and also this. If you see this PR, so this this doesn't this this protocol doesn't uses any external library, and actually this was implemented in Bitcoin Core. So there is no dependence on external library. So this is actually a better one. Yeah. And next, any question till now?
So the mini UPnP, this library, firstly, it's an external library. It's not a part of Bitcoin Core. It can be incorporated by anybody in their project, right?
Yep.
Okay. And we have now gotten rid of it, and it has been substituted by another library owing to the vulnerabilities in mini UPnPC.
Not library. I mean PCP, like the new uh, implementation has been done, but it is done in Bitcoin Core. I mean, this doesn't use any external library.
So when we say drop mini UPnP, okay, so
Yeah,
we are not making use of that library anymore, right?
yeah.
And its function is being executed by some other library, right?
Yep.
Which one is that?
Uh, ex like many of the routers, they uses this library, and this is actually external library. I mean, many of the application they use this library, but now Bitcoin Core doesn't use this library, and they have their own implementation that is PCP with NAT-PMP.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Oh, yeah. So we can go with the code changes then. So the first commit is basically removing the UPnP from the Qt part, and what happens here is that Yeah, we are just getting rid of this, like the widget, the queue checkbox widget. Okay, and this is actually in the Qt. And what happens is if you like click or like enable this part, then this would automatically open up Bitcoin client port in the router, so that the external node could map to your node. Okay, and the next is, yeah, this is actually the preprocessor directives, and if this is enabled, then it maps the UI element with the options model map port. Yeah, and yeah, this is similar. And okay, this actually maps the UI element with the options uh, map port UPnP. Okay, so we are getting rid of that. And what else? Yeah, and also in the option ID, we are just removing the map port UPnP because we are getting rid of the UPnP support. Okay, so this is actually if the UPnP is enabled, then settings to pool is actually with the previous PR, the UPnP was set by it's kept off by default. So if you use UPnP, like if UPnP was enabled, then this would actually um, set true. Okay, by default it's set to false. Okay, and also this one is if suppose you're running the Bitcoin core, okay, then you want there is some error, okay, with the router there might be some error. So you are currently running Bitcoin core and you just don't want that to stop Bitcoin core and to enable NAT-PMP, I mean UPnP, then again start Bitcoin core. You can just enable UPnP on the fly. Okay, so with this it will just set the pool to true, and the next data or the packets that will be transferred from Bitcoin core node will use the protocol UPnP. And also this we are getting rid from the Bitcoin core. Okay, and this one is basically like from here we just saw that uh, yeah, here we are just setting it to false. Okay, so what happens here is that uh, when the node will map port and it will check whether the UPnP port is set to true or false. Okay, and with this new port, it will just set to false. Like we just don't want that UPnP to be enabled. We're just actually not using UPnP, so it's just kept to false. Previously, it was actually kept to bool, so that if it was enabled, then it will be true, or if it was a disabled, then it will be false. And yeah, this is actually migrate setting. Like if UPnP was enabled, then we'll just uh, change the setting. Actually, UPnP was when UPnP was disabled by default. Okay, in the previous PR, and also in that PR, NAT-PMP PCP with NAT-PMP as a fallback protocol was used, and in that PR, um, there was a implementation in Bitcoin Core, the IPv4 port mapping. Okay, this is actually uh, like a manual port mapping, which we don't have to do obviously. The Bitcoin Core will do, but there is some algorithm that does IPv4 port mapping. Okay, so what happens here is that if if we are not using that the Bitcoin port like a traditional IPv4 port mapping, then if you're using UPnP, then we'll just have this setting to use UPnP. Okay. And other are like we are just removing this from the comments UPnP. Yeah, and this is just changing the arguments and the test file and in the header files. Okay, so we'll just go to the next commit. So yeah, so in this commit, we'll just remove UPnP support from the daemon. Okay, Bitcoin port daemon, and keeping like for this version that is 28.1, we'll just keep not 28.1, 29.0, sorry. So we'll just keep the UPnP option as hidden argument. Okay. If you use UPnP, then there will be some custom messages. Okay. User friendly error. Okay. If they have enabled their UPnP in their config file, they'll just get some friendly error message. So in this commit, yeah, we're just removing this argument. Okay. Like UPnP support. Okay. UPnP part. And instead of that, we're just keeping UPnP and it is just kept hidden. Okay. Hidden means, I mean, you can just use that, but there'll be some custom messages. So we'll just see that custom message. Okay. Yeah. If you use the UPnP okay, argument, then it will just display UPnP support was dropped in version 29.0 and consider using minus NAT-PMP. So we'll just see that. Okay. Is my like this visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, okay. Just check that branch whether that's okay. So if we use minus UPnP, then it should pop this comment message. Okay.
Yeah, I think you've typed it wrong. You've typed
Okay.
UNPN.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. UPnP support was dropped in version 29.0. Consider using NetPnP. So if we use NetPnP, then it will definitely work. Yeah. So, and the next is yeah. So in the previous commit, we just saw that the pool was set to false. Okay, instead of this, it was set to false. And what happens is like when that argument is set to false, then it will call this function and it will check whether this UPnP was enabled or not in the in the previous before this PR. Okay. So now it has been changed to false because we just don't want that UPnP to be used anymore. And instead of that, we are just using the NAT-PMP. Okay. This will basically check, this function will basically check whether UPnP or NAT-PMP is enabled or not. If both of them are false, then this will get to false and this function won't do anything, won't return anything. And we're just removing this config file and again all the header file which was used for mini UPnpc is being removed. See? And yeah, if UPnP was enabled, okay, that start map port function would basically call this process UPnP. Okay, so what this does is it basically discovers. I just said that when UPnP was enabled, then that device that is currently, like, if that is connected to that router, then it will basically discover all other devices connected to that router. Okay, which has UPnP enabled. If that device doesn't have UPnP enabled, then it won't able to discover. Then it will get the valid IGD. Like IGD means Internet Gateway Device, the devices that are connected to the router which supports UPnP. It just get that all the devices, okay. And also this function will check whether like this uh, UPnP, like whether this external router IP address. It will actually like acquire that the external IP address of the router. Okay. Then what else? Then yeah, this function will add all the devices that are connected to the router with UPnP enabled, and it will store all the like details or data about the devices, okay, all the IP addresses and all that stuff. Then after the port mapping has been done, and it will actually remove all other unnecessary. Okay, this function is actually add the port mapping with the router. Okay, and the next function, yes, when UPnP, when the router when it starts searching all the like devices, okay, it will establish a port mapping with all other devices. Okay, so after it gets the router IP address and starts port mapping, okay, then it will delete all the port mapping with all other devices. Okay, and then this function will basically free all the data about the devices that are currently connected to the router, okay, and URLs. Okay. And what else? Okay, this is actually if condition. No, okay. Yes, if condition. So his preprocessor directives is UPnP is enabled. Then what happens is uh, like it will check whether the protocol in your device is enabled or not. Okay, and whether that protocol is supported by the router. So the this enable gmap port enable protos, what it will do is it will check whether that uh, whether you're running Bitcoin post, so whether it supports like the UPnP or not. Okay, and the current one will check whether uh, the router supports the UPnP or not. So if this it's match, then it will process the UPnP. This is the process function. We are getting rid of all these function. Okay, and yeah, we're removing this comment. Okay, and yeah, so if that like function, if that bool is satisfied, like if current, like if your router supports UPnP and also your that device supports UPnP, then it will set the map port flag UPnP with use UPnP, which is set to true. Okay. Then we're just getting rid of this constant expression and UPnP from the enum. That's also from the functional test framework, we're just getting rid of that UPnP is equals to 0. We'll just go to next commit. So here we are removing the use UPnP argument from map port. Okay. So like in this commit, we're just setting, previously it was false, okay, because by default the UPnP was set to was set off from the previous PR, because with that vulnerability is what it was actually it was actually set like closed by default, okay. So we are just getting removed from getting rid from this false, okay. Because we just don't want that UPnP to be used anymore, okay. So we just checking whether this NAT-PMP is enabled or not. And again, we're getting rid of this UPnP, because here we are removing false. Okay, so we also want that this UPnP to get rid. Instead of that, we'll just use this bool PCP. Same for here, like in the here we just getting rid of this false and changing it to NAT-PMP. So we'll just change this function parameters. Similar to here also, this actually header file. So in this here we are just getting rid of this use UPnP argument, and instead of this we're just using this bool PCP, use PCP. Okay. And yeah, this is also, I think, pretty clear. Just removing this false because we just don't want use UPnP to be used anymore. Just changing that to uh, PCP. Let's go to next commit. And in this commit, we are just removing the dependency mini UPnpc dependency from the build file. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually the option. Okay. If mini UPnpc is enabled or passed with argument, then this will be find package will be called. Okay. So we are just getting rid of that. And what else? Yeah. uh, we're just removing mini UPnpc and also this part. Let's go to next commit. Yeah. So in this commit, we are just getting rid of UPnP options from CI part. Okay. Yeah, we're just getting rid of this library and this as well. And also in the Mac OS mini UPnpc. This is all the CI part, okay, and we're just removing every like UPnP traces from the CI part. Let's see next comment. Yeah, and this in this commit we are just removing all the mentions of UPnP. Okay, this one, okay, and this one as well. Yeah, from the Mac OS as well, and this one as well. This is just actually the doc changes. I mean, removing every UPnP mentions and traces and all the like dependencies, everything. So instead of this UPnP, it's just kept NAT-PMP. Okay. Let's go to the next thing. Also, in this commit, this is actually also similar. Like we are getting rid of the mini UPnpc traces from the depends file. This one as well, and this one as well. Uh, This one also we are getting rid of that. Yeah, in this commit, the author is just adding the release note for this PR. Okay, and settings UPnP will now return an error. Consider using NAT-PMP instead, and this one as well. Support for UPnP was dropped, and if you want to open a port automatically, consider using NAT-PMP option instead, which uses PCP or NAT-PMP depending on routers. Okay, let's go to next one. Okay, in this PR, we're just removing all the outdated comments, which mentions UPnP. Okay. Yeah, in this in this commit, we're just removing all the dead code in dispatch map port function. Okay, and since in that map port flag enum, we now have only two options. Okay, and that is already covered. Let me just open this file. Yes. So so what happens here is that uh, since in the enum flag we just have two options, okay, like the bool, okay, the true and false, like we just want whether PCP should be enabled true, and or if don't want PCP, then we'll just use false. Okay, so that is already being covered in this if condition, for if condition, and we don't want this extra code to be inserted because we don't have anything extra like or additional protocol for port mapping, so we're just getting rid of this this three functions. Okay, yeah, this if the current protocol, which is basically the router protocol, if that is none, I mean if that router doesn't supports like NAT-PMP, then also if your device like or the Bitcoin core doesn't supports NAT-PMP, then it will return nothing. And likewise, if it returns, if the router doesn't supports, then also it will return nothing. Okay, but it will start the thread map code. Okay, like if your device supports like if your device supports UPnP, then or basically PCP, then and if your router supports UPnP, okay, then what happens is it will just try to port forward. Okay, then your device will start the thread which will basically map with that router, and that router what it will do is it thinks that the device has automatically or manually started that map porting. Okay, so it will just allow that it will just map the port with that with the outside like devices to your Bitcoin port. So if both of them supports, then it will actually like so if your device doesn't supports, or if the router doesn't supports the like if your router supports, okay, just a second. Okay, yeah. If your router supports basically the PCP port mapping, okay, and if your device doesn't support basically the Bitcoin core, then it will interrupt the map porting and it will stop map port. Okay. Then if both of them supports, then it will return nothing. So in summary, we just covered there are actually only two cases in the enum class. Okay, so we are just that is already covered in the if part. So we are just getting rid of this like the dead code in the mapport.cpp file. Okay. Yeah, I think this is yeah. So if you're using the daemon, okay, so if you use UPnP, then you will get something like this was dropped in 29.0. And if you use the Qt part, then you will get something similar to this. Yeah. We just get an error message and UPnP support was dropped in version 29.0. Consider using NAT-PMP instead. Yeah, this was it. Any question?
Hey, thanks for the review, UVC. No questions from my end. I think Coding P has a question.
Okay. Could you please explain this? Okay, just a second. Explain why this commit. Maybe in the next commit, there was some review like you could remove this. Like in the previous one, we could remove that, and in the next commit, it was removed. Are you asking that? Because if you see in this the overall file change, then I think this might not be an issue. Because we are just reviewing every commit. In every commit, there might be some changes with the previous commit as well. Yeah, are you asking this? Couldn't be. Oh, sure. Till then, anyone else has any question?
Not me.
Then coding please type in. Just okay. I think go to the question part. Yeah, the first question is like, why do we have NAT-PMP as fallback option for PCP? Okay, this is actually a general question. I mean, any guesses? Very general.
Like, what if all nodes don't upgrade, or what if some devices are not compatible with PCP? Could that be the reason?
Yeah. That's the reason. Maybe the router won't support because PCP is kind of a successor to UPnP and it's kind of a new protocol. So yeah, that's the correct answer. So why PCP with NAT-PMP is not set by default? I mean, why we still use IPv4 port mapping? Like, why not use PCP with NAT-PMP? I mean, why it's not set by default? I mean, UPnP was set by default, but why PCP is not set by default? Any guesses?
Um, Like, I'm assuming the transition should be gradual. Generally, whenever new changes are integrated into Bitcoin Core, they are not set by default.
Correct. Yeah. For basically, I mean, PCP is not actually matured enough. So, I mean, that was the first PR with PCP. So, and it got merged and it's not set by default. So, the next question is why Bitcoin Core needed UPnP or mini UPnpc previously?
Because
Any guess?
if a ready-made library is already available, then you incorporate that to reduce your overheads instead of writing one from scratch.
Yeah, that's correct. The key goal was to increase the number of reachable nodes on the Bitcoin network. So yeah, uh, just just don't want any overhead, and instead of that, using external library, and with that, that is automatically port forwarding.
Thanks. What do I get? Nothing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining, and yeah.